Well, everyone, I decided to try something new, and I'm actually going to work on something that might actually deserve the amount of time that I'm going to put into it. I give you my 1968 Chevelle. So right now, some of you are probably thinking, why is this asshole been working on a Yugo when he owns this? And it's a good thought. I've actually owned this car for actually roughly 25 years. It was my first car I bought when I was 16. So I bought it in roughly 2000. So yeah, it's been a little while. Fun thing is that I haven't really driven it in probably 10 years. Aside from maybe driving it once a year to put fresh gas in it and then park it back in the garage again. And there's not really a good reason for this, I just haven't done it. It needs a couple little things and just new shiny projects show up that get my attention and I forget about this. But I decided to actually do something that will actually kind of force me to work on it. I signed up for Hot Rod Drag Week, which is in September. So appropriately, I signed up for it with a car that hasn't even really ran or drove in years and isn't ready. So yeah, welcome to the adventure. I'll give you guys a tour here. You can go back a while ago on the channel and there's kind of a few mentions of this car. There was a video of it where I took it to run at Cecil County Dragway for when the Sloppy Mechanics had a track rental. And then I think I might have done a walk around of it like once or twice, but here it is again. So this is a 1968 Chevelle 300 post car. You can see right there, that little post. Chevelles don't normally have that. Normally it'd be open there, and if you'd roll down the front and the rear window, it'd just be completely open. But this is actually considered a two-door sedan because of that post. You can argue about it in the comments, but it's technically not a coupe, it's a two-door sedan. So anyway, this is supposedly a rare car, but at the same time, not desirable. So it's funny how that works. But it is a two-door, which if it wasn't for the fact that I bought this 25 years ago, I wouldn't be able to afford today. So that's kind of cool. I had this painted my senior year of high school, and looking closely at it, you'll see that it pretty much looks like that. But this was originally a inline six power glide car, pretty much no options. I think the only option it had was like a heater and a radio, and I guess probably the automatic transmission. Now it has a 350. It had some just garbage 70s smog truck motor in it when I got it, another 350 to the original Power Glide. And I took that apart after high school to, soup up. And the block was actually cracked in the one cylinder. And at the time, the amount of machine work that I could do, it was the same price to buy a new block. So this is actually a GM Motorsports block. I don't even know if they make that anymore, but it's like a universal block. The dipsticks are on both sides and stuff. It's nothing special, it's just like a replacement block. It's not overboard, it's just a straight 350. It has Vortec heads from Scoggin Dickey Chevy, which back at that time were selling a cylinder head package, and that was right when people started figuring out like these Vortec heads were good. So they're not stock, there's something done to them. I know they are machines, you can run higher lift than the Vortec heads can normally take. And I think there's a little bit more than that, but I can't really remember what. It has forged pistons, it has some kind of aftermarket rod in it. I forget what crankshaft, maybe just stock, who knows. It has way too big of a camshaft. It has a Comp Magnum 292H, which if I remember off the top of my head is around 500 lift, 292 total duration, 244 at 50. So it basically idles at 1200 RPM, but it sounds like it's idling at 100 RPM. But it does work. No power steering, no power brakes, front drum brakes, because I don't know why, it just never did anything with that. I did dyno this a couple times. I forget the exact numbers, but it made a little over 300 horsepower to the wheels, which everyone's just gonna be like, boo, but it's okay for what it is for a NA 350. Let's see, and then when I ran it that track day, it ran roughly 1275, and in a separate pass, it went 107. That's all I remember. It wasn't the quickest pass, wasn't the highest mile per hour pass or whatever, but that's what it ran. So 1275, 107, let's just call it. It has a TH250 in it now, with like a 3500 stall converter in it, and there's not too much to say about it. The biggest issue here is that it has a lot of sins from my past, because I built a lot of this when I was like 18 through 25. So there's some stuff done kind of shittily. See what else we got going on here. It's got ancient dry rotted Mickey Thompson drag radials. Another fun feature of the 300 model is that the reverse lights are in the tail lights and not the bumper. Your regular Malibu or whatever would have a solid red tail light. It's not much to see in the interior. Black. It has seats out of some Camaro that aren't really bolted in straight into the floor. That the last guy did that. Rear seat is not bad. No air conditioning, obviously. Doesn't even have disc brakes. But yeah, that's what we got. So, as I said, there's some sins from the past. And where we're going to start with rectifying this car is in the steering box area. I'll put it up in the air and show you what the issues are. Before we get into the bad stuff up front, I forgot to mention too that the rear end's rebuilt. This is the stock 8.2 inch 10 bolt, but it now has 373 gears in it and an Auburn cone style posi unit. It has this cover that supposedly keeps the rear end from scattering. I have full UMI, I'll call them tubular, but it's actually like box suspension. Not the adjustable stuff, because that's above my level of engineering. But upper and lower control arms. It has competition engineering drag shocks all the way around. Flowmaster dual exhaust, some headers. So yeah, stuff going on there. But now up to the fun part. Let's go up front here. So there is the old manual steering box. And the issue I had probably 20 years ago is that the one day I was doing whatever on it, and when I pulled this, that's what it was, I was changing the sway bar, or sway bar bushings. When I pulled this apart, there was no metal here. So I fixed it at the time, which was about, like I said, about 20 years less welding skill that I have now. And ever since then, it's been in the back of my head that I didn't do this right. It's probably way too thin of steel. Although as I'm working on it, or actually I'm tapping on it, it's probably better than I'm giving myself credit for, because it has lasted 20 years and hasn't rusted out again, and I haven't died. So I guess it can't be that bad. But in my opinion, the metal's too thin, and there's actually sleeves behind these bolts. So when you pinch the, when you tighten the steering box, it doesn't crush the frame. Those were rusted out, and I didn't put new ones in. So like when I tightened it down, you could kind of see the frame crunching a little bit. It never caused me any issues, like I said, but it's always been in the back of my mind. So I'm going to fix this properly now with some actual like heavy metal, and I got some sleeves to use, and then this won't be like just haunting me every time I drive the car. The steering box is going to snap off. Look at that, all rich in drum brake goodness. Okay, I got everything disassembled here. Got the old steering box off. And I don't know, maybe I was harder on myself than I should have been. Because there is some new rust that was just being sealed in by the paint. You can see there's some new pinholes there and stuff. But I guess my shady repair actually held up better than I thought it would. It cracked a little bit here, or is that just, actually that's not even cracked, that's just extra weld, like bonus weld. I had nuts welded in here to bolt the sway bar on, and one of them broke. Use a few more pinholes here. This is actually a factory weld right here on the frame. And you can see it's ground smooth where I patched it here, and then it goes back to its shady factory weld again. And then here on the inside, kind of more of the same. There is a few spots I missed there, but that is new rust. And by new, I mean the last 20 years or whatever. And then up here, this is all factory yet. So this hole was always good. The top hole on both sides. So at least I had one good bolt holding it on. It's just these two bottom ones. The reason this rusts is because it's a boxed in frame. You see these holes here? Well, stuff goes in here when you're driving, and then here it's two behind the bumper. And then also rodents like making nests in the frame rails, and then they leave their leaves and nuts and droppings and leavings in there, and it rots the frame out. Surprisingly, I checked the rest of the frame because I knew this was bad, so I kind of figured the rest of the frame would be rusty, and there's no rust at all in the rest of the frame. These normally rust out in the rear, like in the rear control arm area, and somehow this one survived. This is the only rust in the whole frame right here. So I got some like flat bar here. You know, as I say, okay, this is 1/8 inch plate, just normal steel. So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to, I think I'm just going to put a piece under here, wrap it up, and then put my sides on. And then I also got some tubing here. Hard to see in the packaging, but it's roughly 1/2 inch ID. This one says 1 inch, that ain't right, it's 1/2 inch. Then those are where the bolts are gonna go through. So I'll see if I can engineer how to make this stuff line up. Something else fun I found, when I pulled the steering box off, that's the one that was on the car, the manual box. Here's the power one I'm gonna be putting on if I haven't mentioned that yet. When I undid the 3 bolts, the whole steering shaft fell off. So let's separate right there at the rag joint. This one has a rag joint on it. And the fun part about that is that the bolt was still in this. And it might be hard to see on camera, but the splines in the inside are kind of rounded off. So at some point, this was not put on right, where this bolt was not lined up in the upper part of the steering column. And the fun part about that is I've never had this apart. So that has probably been like that for, you know, 30 or 40 years or more. So that's kind of nice. There was nothing really, you know, steering the car. But I survived, I guess. This is a used power steering box that I bought years ago. To the surprise of no one, I've been hoarding a lot of parts to this car, even though I haven't been working on it, but I've been slowly gathering stuff. So hopefully this is good. But if not, I think I only paid 40 bucks for it. I had to order a power steering pitman arm because they're different. So hopefully that comes soon. But in the meantime, I do have some frame to fix. I've started making some of the patch panels here before I start cutting the frame apart. Here's where the sway bar bracket mounts. I thoroughly welded some bolts on there and put a little bit of bend in it. This is going to be the inboard side here. I think this is the one I have to start with, so everything kind of lines up. So here's what we got here. This was where I patched it before. So I extended the patch like just beyond like the last little rust hole there, and then over here where my booger weld was from years ago. So that will go on roughly like that if I do this properly. And you'll see these holes are big here. The reason is because this tubing I got, there we go, pretty snug fit. If I play my cards right and this goes in straight, so that'll be flush. I'll weld it on the inside and then put it in the frame, and then hopefully it lines up. I'm really trying to figure out how to make sure the box still fits the holes when I'm all said and done. So hopefully I don't screw this up. Okay, I think I'm onto something here. I put the steering box back up with the good bolt hole through here. And here's the plate I made. I have the tubes tacked on and they punch all the way through this side. I just blew these holes out to the same size with the step bit. And then what I did was I put bolts through the wrong way through the box here to make sure I line up, and I do. And you can kind of see this plate actually fits surprisingly well. It's kind of hard to see, but I'm gonna pull it back apart now and I'm gonna actually like solidly weld those tubes on to this plate, and then I'll tack it in. Then I'm gonna come over here and I'm going to have to make a patch for this side and then cut this out, and hopefully it fits. And then, I mean, that's gonna be the hardest thing of all this. As long as all this lines up, then I'm golden. So we'll see how this plays out. So everything's all fabbed up here. Here's the hole of shame. I kind of knocked all the stuff out of it, but I'm gonna be cutting more of this out, so I'm not too worried about getting it real clean right now. But there was a bunch of stuff in there, like a walnut and stuff. That's why it rusts out, is because all this stuff lays in here, like from this hole. Like mice get in here and stuff and fill this up, and then it rots out. But here's what I made. Here's the pipery. That should be pretty sturdy, I'd say. And what I did was, if you look through there, I hogged out the old holes in the frame that I'm cutting out to where this will fit through. So then I'm, somewhat sure it's lined up. And then there we go. And then I'm gonna put the steering box on temporarily again to hold this up, because it doesn't really want to hold up. And then just to make sure everything stays good, I made another plate here with the same bolt spacing. I'll stop hitting stuff here. And then I'm gonna put that on there and hammer it on so these are straight when I weld the inside and they don't move. Then I just have to shape this to the size of the frame right there in that cutout, and everything should still line up if I'm thinking correctly. Okay, so I got this almost all tacked in. I need to make a little piece right for there yet. But other than that, I have pretty much everything replaced. And you can see it's all just tacked together for now. I was about to weld it with my trusty Lincoln 110 I've had since I was probably 20 over there. And then I thought I would do a test piece using the same metal I'm using to patch it. And when I welded it together and then ground the weld down, I was able to snap it right in half by the weld. So I guess it's finally time to get a 220 welder. So I did what any YouTuber would do, and I waited for a free one to come via sponsorship.
If you think Girls Gone Wild was wild before, just wait till you see what these girls do when Snoop Dogg is unleashed and takes control of the camera. It's not sold in stores and can't be shown on TV, so call now and get the all-new Girls Gone Wild doggy style.
And then when that didn't work, I just went to Harbor Freight and bought this titanium 220 volt or 240, whatever. It's a titanium MiG 170. I had a $50 coupon, and seems to be pretty good. We'll see how this does here, but I already did a little testing and it does actually penetrate 1/8 inch plate, which is handy for this project. I think my repair there is complete. I didn't grind the welds completely flush because I was afraid of them actually losing their strength. So I just kind of ground them down a little bit. I had to make it pretty flat in the sides of the box will lay on there. If there was like a big booger weld on there, the box wouldn't lay against the frame. But it turned out pretty good. I'd say it's pretty structurally sound. Guess you could say I'm more of a grinder than I am a welder, but it won't break. I didn't even bother getting in here to grind it flat. It's good enough. But no more rust holes. Everything is 1/8 inch plate now, all back here. So I'll just paint that up and we can move on with life. So here is the completed and painted product. I finished my grind welding and hit it with some paint. And I guess we'll just have to call that good enough. The way I figure it is, it's a lot better than what was there, and what was there I thought was subpar, and it lasted like 20 years, so I guess this really isn't that bad. So now it's on to other more important things, or more entertaining things at least. So I remember I never really addressed this, and I should have, because a lot of people from the West Coast, the US, and maybe other countries are probably like completely losing their minds right now that I welded on a frame. This is very common from where I am in the United States, in Pennsylvania. Frames on everything rust. I routinely see trucks that are like less than 10 years old that belong in junkyards because the frames are so rotten. So it's pretty common to have them repaired around here. It's not like dangerous or whatever you want to say as long as you do it right. It kind of just comes with the territory. Like it's either that or you throw the car out. So a lot of people might be judging me because I patched the frame on this car, but it's like, what am I supposed to do? Like buy a new frame? They don't exist. Just junk the car? Like, I don't know. So it is what it is. Like it's better than it was. There's probably things rolling around me that are 10 times worse than this that people drive every day. So I mean, it's not nice to say, but it's true. But at least now I'm pretty confident the steering box is gonna stay put. And then other than that, the rest of the frame was good. So is it ideal? Like, no, it'd be nice to have a rust-free frame, like an original frame or say a reproduction frame or something like that, but it's just not realistic, unfortunately. And to me, this was the best way to fix the car. Okay, I got the steering shaft reinstalled. It's actually secure up there now. The bolt's actually through the safety slot. And then I used the rag joint that came on the new gearbox, and it fits, so that's all good. But you'll notice there's like something critical missing here, which is the pump and the hydraulic hoses and bracketry and everything, because obviously this car was never power steering. In fact, it was never even a V8 car, so there's a lot of things not right here. So here is what I got.
Show me what you got.
Jim, you heard them said, show me what you got.
So apprehensively, I went on eBay and started looking for just power steering pump brackets. And what I actually came upon was, for some reason, sold in one box is a power steering pump bracket kit, an alternator bracket for some reason, and all 3 pulleys. I'm apprehensive because this was pretty cheap, and these are stock style stamped steel pulleys. I'm hoping that they remotely track straight. I have my doubts. I have a feeling they're gonna be like a weeble wobble when they're on the engine, but you know, we'll see. The price was right, so I'll give them a shot. And then in my hoard, I've been sitting on this aluminum water pump for a few years that I got really cheap. Just never got around to putting it on the engine. So seeing how I have to take everything else off the front anyway, I figure I might as well just throw that on too, because I own it. And it's a Mr. Gasket one, so you know, again, it's good stuff. So we'll see how this all fits together, and then hopefully when it's all said and done, this works. Well, I've made some progress. I skipped out on the actual installation here because, frankly, it would have been too much profanity for YouTube. But the accessories are on. So there's a power steering pump. I'll start there. That bracket fit okay. It needed some washers to space it out from the block for pulley alignment. The funny thing is that the parts shown in the eBay listing are not this power steering bracket. It shows a completely different bracket comes in this kit. So I looked up how it actually goes together. The pictures were wrong. I had to find another eBay listing that had this style bracket on it. But whatever, it does work. The water pump pulley and the crank pulley are good. They're in line with each other. No problems there. The alternator bracket was not so good. So it was very thin. And if you notice on this bracket, it bolts to water pumped air and then intake. And then over here I have another version. See, this one goes to water pump and then the thermostat bolt. Personally, those are the only 2 styles of these passenger side alternator brackets I've ever seen. The one in the kit actually went up to one of the intake bolts, which the problem on this intake is, you can see it here, the Vortec intake, the bolts go straight up. So that wouldn't have worked. And then the lower bracket and spacer was very chintzy. So what I ended up doing was I actually had one of these. This is a used one that I just had in, you know, my hoard. So I just quick threw some paint on that. And then this is the lower half of that billet bracket I had on there with like the turnbuckle on top, which actually worked pretty good, but I thought it looked dumb, so I got rid of it. So I put on the probably inferior factory looking bracket. And then this is my go-to alternator, which I'll put the part number somewhere because I can't remember off the top of my head. But this is a 85 Camaro 5-liter carbureted with AC alternator. And this is the stock size, the small case, I think it's a 10 SI alternator, but it is 105 amp. So it's a cheater way of getting a stock size, stock looking alternator that's higher amperage. So that's on there. I don't have it wired up yet, but it's on. So through, you know, some washers and spacers and stuff, everything's on, the belts are aligned. My power steering hoses are on. They're weird. I don't know, that's what it calls for, the hoses for this car. So I don't really know why they're like that. That's the best I could do them. I can't find any pictures of Chevelle power steering hoses that look like that, but this is what it calls for, so I guess we'll just go with that. Until it causes an issue, then I'll figure something else out. But the steering shaft is back in, steering box is on, I have it filled with fluid. I have to get another heater hose here. It's a little short with this bracket, it's gonna rub on it, so I'm gonna get a new heater hose. And then while I was at it, I put new upper and lower hoses on because those were 20 years old when I first put the car together. So yeah, all good. Okay, that's where I'm gonna end this video because it's just kind of dragging on. I'm not sure how long it's gonna be, but that was a lot in real lifetime what just happened there. Probably like a month and a half because of just how things happen. But I found on top of my already existing list that a few more things I have to address. The first thing is that I was unaware that some of the wiring is kind of not great. Back when I was younger, I didn't have faith in doing wiring myself. So other people did it for me, like I paid garages to do it. And I found some of their wiring and it's not fantastic. So I'm probably gonna touch some of that up. Everything works, but I'm kind of thinking it will probably suddenly not work when I'm on a road trip with it. Also, I found out that for drag week, a couple like common sense things have to actually work on the car that don't. Things that don't matter to me, but I guess, you know, safety. Like a horn, some of these nice luxury items. Neutral safety switch, which I think it might have, I don't remember. Emergency brakes, which it definitely does not even have cables on it. So I guess a few of those things are going to be put on the car so that I can, you know, meet tech and actually have a normal vehicle, what people consider a normal, safe vehicle. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to improve the brakes in the car. Right now it has 4-wheel drum with a manual master. It's not even power assist. And it's trapped 107.25 on drum brakes, which probably isn't great. I mean, it stopped, but it's probably not the best thing on earth. So I have a disc brake kit for it. I'll probably pop the rear drums off and see just to make sure everything's good in there. They were redone at some point when I owned it. And then while I'm in there, I'll probably try and fix the emergency brakes and make them work again. So yeah, that'll be coming up next. It's gonna be quite a lot of work to do in this car before fall, so hopefully it all gets done.